Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today we're talking about Monsterpocalypse by Mythic Games. Should you back it, should you not, campaign overview, all the usual stuff, timestamps down below. But first, a note from our sponsor, Gamefound. Lords of Ragnarok is currently on Gamefound, ending in just over a week, ending on November 11th. This is the spiritual successor to Lords of Hellas. This is an area control game, gorgeous miniatures, sun-dropped, although you do have to pay for that. All of that stuff, featuring playing as any number of heroes as you try to vie for victory in one of 4 different endgame conditions, going for temples, going for area control, going for whatever. This is over on Gamefound. Campaign started October 21st and ends on November 11th. And with that, let's head on into Monsterpocalypse. Although, if you do want more notes on the general sponsorship for this channel, check out tomorrow's video. I'll be talking about the general sponsorship. It's a new thing for the channel, so feel free to check that out. In the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about Monsterpocalypse. This is from Mythic Games. This is Mythic Games currently new. This is their newest Kickstarter, although it's far from a new game. Monsterpocalypse is a 2008 game from Privateer Press that has been around for quite some time, and they're partnering up with Mythic Games to bring you this newer version of the game, although most of the newness comes down to, well, updated everything. Updated miniatures, updated graphics, graphical overlays, the new board, new player aids, trying to make the game fresher while keeping it accessible and being able to mix in and combine with people who have any of the original Monsterpocalypse content, because there is a lot of Monsterpocalypse content, and in order to be friendly to, well, everyone who's invested in the game system until now, everything is combinable, which means we're not looking at giant rules changes. We're looking at new things that can be added to the game as opposed to things that replace the game. So there's new player modes, there's new miniatures, there's new buildings, lots of new stuff, but all compatible with the original Monsterpocalypse, well, things, although you will have slight differences in terms of what the miniatures look like or things like that, or maybe even just, I don't know, graphical changes to the cards you have on your monsters versus the cards that are on those monsters. I will not be doing a heavy deep dive into the comparison of old versus new on this campaign, but understand everything here is compatible. As far as what the game actually is, what is Monsterpocalypse? Monsterpocalypse is a game where you are smashing monsters into other things. That's basically it. I do have a review over on the channel. You can check that out. There's a gameplay over on Quacklope's channel, as well as over on Mythic's channel. There's a gameplay as well. A few other channels have content at the same time. I know King of Average will be having some content, some unboxings or reviews or whatnot. In any case, going back to the general campaign, going back to the general game, Monsterpocalypse is a 1 to 4 player game, roughly 30 to 90 minutes depending on the scenario and player count, in which you are smashing monsters into, well, everything. You're charging into buildings, knocking them over. You're colliding into monsters. You're picking up monsters and smashing them into a whole bunch of, well, enemy minions or units on the board. You're picking up units and throwing them, chucking across the board against monsters. This is a game where you are meant to be Godzilla. You are meant to be King Kong. You are meant to be, well, none of those two actually, but a whole bunch of other monsters as you do monster-ish things. Think Kaiju Wars, think giant killer robots, think what's that Pacific Rim, think Pacific Rim. This is hordes of destruction, lots of destruction, the kind of destruction that makes that Superman movie not seem like that big a deal, but that's the fun of the game. If you for a second ignore the tiny cries of all the people in those buildings dying horrible deaths, then this is a tremendously fun game where you're smashing everything into everything in order to win the game. The primary goal of the game is to take your monster's health down to, well, 0. They take the opposing monster's health down to 0, and this is a game where it has multiple player modes. So you might have a 1 versus 1, one monster versus another monster with their supporting units. You might have a bunch of monsters versus a bunch of monsters. You might play as team play. If you're backing this game, they have a whole bunch of new cooperative modes. They have Apex Predators, which are basically larger, more powerful versions of existing monsters. There's a cooperative mode where you can take down monsters, including taking down those Apex Predators, which are heavier and harder to hit than ever before. There's team play, there's Battle Royale, there's 3 versus 3 in terms of monsters. A whole bunch of new player modes added to the game and or streamlined player modes added to the Monsterpocalypse game. Past that, I focused on the monsters. You also have supporting units and unique buildings in the game. Supporting units will be the various units that support your monster that give you small little different abilities of what they do and how they do it, adding another tactical element in the game as you focus on what to activate. And activation is a huge part of the game because you have this dice pool that you're managing between the monsters and the units, and you're sliding dice back and forth in terms of where you're going to put your abilities, where you're going to put your turns, which leads to this dynamic of choosing whether you have more powerful turns or whether you have the flexibility of being able to activate anything on your turn. So you have to balance that trade-off. And then past that, you have the buildings. The buildings will be a variety of unique buildings. There's often, depending on the player mode, depending how you play the game, there'll be a pre-game draft where you put different buildings down on different building spots on the board, and then each of those buildings have different abilities to be mindful of while your units parade around the board, trying to gather power for your monsters, trying to take control of buildings to both gather power and get their abilities. And that basically is 90% of, well, 95% of what you need to know about Monsterpocalypse. Pick up a monster, smash it into building, roll chunks of dice, and manage your units, position yourself however best, well, to actually destroy each other, and attempt to win the game. That's everything, basically. This campaign is bringing that Monsterpocalypse general game over to retail, well, Kickstarter first and then retail, but making it more accessible in a board game format. The original Privateer Press version, aside from having, again, different aesthetics to the game, it was more of a collectible lineup. So this line over here, save over $300 compared to current retail, that's completely true. Although, to be very clear, compared to current retail are the key words. The saving over $300 is not compared to what Monsterpocalypse will cost when it goes to retail, and nearly everything in this campaign is going to retail, but rather it's compared to current retail, meaning what it would cost if you bought this in the current collectible lineup, which I believe has resin miniatures. I could be wrong with that. So you're comparing a little bit apples versus oranges, meaning if you're someone like myself who cares more about the board game side of things, and the miniatures are awesome, but you're more of a board gamer in that kind of package, then yes, this absolutely is a savings over current retail, because I'm getting, in my opinion, things that look nicer, that look better, look more streamlined, look whatever, and at a cheaper price point. But if you're someone who cares about, resin miniatures or quality, whatever it is, then it's not exactly apples to apples. So for me, it's apples to apples. For me, it's actually, this is better apples than those apples. For some people, it might be apples to oranges. More importantly, though, and we'll talk about this in the Should You Back It, this is compared to current retail, not what the game will cost later. So factor that in as you look at this Kickstarter, as you decide if it's for you or not. Especially if you're someone who's living internationally and you have to pay VAT, because you do have to pay VAT on this campaign. Previously, Mythic has absorbed VAT in prior campaigns, but they can't anymore. With the freight crisis, with everything going on, with increased costs in board games, they can't currently absorb VAT, and so you will have to pay that, which means this is something you want to consider if you're backing it now versus looking at retail. Now over here we have plenty of stretch goals to unlock. There are so many of them that will sometimes even offer you double stretch goals. And if the first day of the campaign has anything to go by, and we are currently on the first day, we have 16 days to go. So if the first day is anything to go by, yes, there are tons of stretch goals to unlock. As far as the why back now, plenty of stretch goals, and then Kickstarter exclusive Mythic headquarters. So this is the only thing that they have said officially is Kickstarter exclusive. This exclusive Mythic headquarters is the one thing. It's a unique building. I assume it looks like Mythic headquarters. I assume. I haven't actually Googled it. I probably should, but I assume it looks like Mythic headquarters, and that will be the one exclusive thing in the campaign. Although, if you go through the comments on the campaign, they're basically saying everything will be going to retail, but all the stuff that's extra probably, maybe, might go to retail depending. So in other words, they basically said things likely will go to retail, but not a guarantee, especially as far as all the extras and stretch goals. And you can take that one of two ways. Either that's a FOMO tactic, fear of missing out, maybe it won't go to retail, so back it on the Kickstarter. The flip side is you can look at things like Marvel United from Come On, where they're like, oh, here's all these expansions going to retail, never mind, we changed our mind, they're Kickstarter only. Sometimes there actually just doesn't make financial sense to package and bundle every single thing in the game. So while I would say there's a decent chance you can expect to see everything except for that building at retail, it is true that there's not a guarantee. Past that, we have stretch goals that have been unlocking. In fact, let's go ahead and go through the core game first, and then let's talk about the stretch goals. Core game over here, this is what you're currently getting in the core game. We'll scroll a little lower to show you everything, but you basically have two different sides, so to speak. You have the destroyers and the defenders. I think that's what they're called. I can't remember. It might be called something else. But two different sides, one defending the city. Although when I say defending the city, I mean like Superman in Man of Steel defending the city, like destroying everything and killing who knows how many people. But hey, we defended the city. By the way, I actually like Superman, just for the context. I just find it funny because I know so many people don't. So I like talking about it because I know people didn't like that whole city destruction thing. Either way, the point is you have all these monsters and factions defending the city while destroying all the buildings and killing all the people. And then you have the attackers who are attacking the city while destroying all the buildings and killing all the people. So yay, go us. But we're going to have 4 different monsters and their supporting factions for this, well, starting off. I think it's 4 different monsters. Why do I think it's more? It might know. Let's go ahead. Let's go with 4 different monsters on. Oh, that's why, because I'm saying 4 different monsters. It's 8 different monsters. It's 4 different factions, 8 different monsters, and all their supporting units. Let's go ahead and scroll through what we have over here, and then we also have the Battle Royale. So we have the Kickstarter exclusive thing, applicable stretch goals. This is what all you're getting in the $159 pledge. There's 2 main pledge levels, well, 3 actually. There's a $59 veteran pledge, which is focused more on people who currently have Monsterpocalypse and all the stuff. Then we have the $119 pledge, which is giving you the new base box with all the content. And then we have the Crusher pledge, which is giving you the new 5 new Apex Predators and a whole bunch more game modes, expansions. That initial base game is only 1 to 2 players. You need all the expansion stuff to make it a 3 to 4 player game. So let's go ahead and scroll through everything you're getting over here. Core box. These are the miniatures you're getting. And this is Mythic Games, by the way. I think Mythic Games has the best miniatures in board games nowadays. From the games I've kept from them to the games I have not kept from them. From Super Fantasy Brawl to Reichbusters to Six Siege to Darkest Dungeon. They have, in my opinion, the best miniatures in board games. Even when it's a theme I don't particularly care for, like Six Siege. I don't really care for Modern Warfare as my miniature theme, but they look amazing on the table. And that's true over here as well. I mean, granted, what I'm seeing here is not the final production copy on my table. I'm seeing renders. Nonetheless, I believe Mythic Games has the best miniatures in board games alone, which already, by the way, has me biased towards liking this game because I just want to have all those miniatures on the table, preferably smashing buildings to the ground. So we have the Defender X, we have Nova ASR, we have their Elite Strike Fighter, the Rocket Chopper, the MR Tank, Elite Exo Armors, and 3 more Exo Armors, a bunch of supporting units. We have the Dinosaurs, because of course we have dinosaurs defending our lands. I don't understand any of the narrative of what's happening here. I assume there's a narrative, but when you have giant dinosaurs fighting along Defender X, defending our land while destroying all the buildings, I'm lacking some context, although I do like that little bus over there. I mean, again, probably a bunch of dead children in that bus. I wonder if YouTube will strike me for having the words dead children in my video. Probably not. We'll find out. Anyways, Pterodactyls, Elite Bellowar. We have Spicodon, Bellowars, Carnodons, and Carnodons, Elite Carnodons over here. Then we have the Lords of Cthulhu. And yes, we do have Cthulhu into the game. Now, in the game universe, to be fair, this is a Monsterpocalypse fault before Mythic took it on. They were well into the universe. And also, I've generally said, I don't like it when you have Cthulhu joining something like, well, Kemet, let's not talk about that, but when you have something joining as crazy as this, when I don't really care about the theme, I'm cool with it. Although, either way, let's say Olgoth, we have Cthulhu, we have Helion, Snatchers, Elite Snatchers, Meat Slaves are delightful, and we have the Squix and the Squix Elite. And then we have Gorghadra, the Planet Eaters. We have Rogzer, we have Bloodhawk, all these miniatures over here. These are my least favorite sculpts. I don't know what it is about them. I just don't find these particular sculpts appealing. All the rest of them I love. These ones just don't do it for me. I mean, they're nice. I don't like the actual aliens. I mean, they are stomping on everything and destroying things, but I don't like the actual aliens. Then we have the buildings. This is all in your base pledge. This is not an extra optional buy. This is in that base $120 pledge. We have 14 apartment buildings, 6 downtown high-rises, the Guard Defense Base, the Harbinger Karmachar, the Void Gate, the Mount Terra. By the way, for context, I have bought Playmobil sets for my kids that had less content for this. This is something I talk about a lot. I can easily justify getting this game because my kids will enjoy playing with this on the table. They likely won't break miniatures. They usually don't. And this will be cheaper than, well, a whole lot of Playmobil. But either way, we have the game elements. We have the various boards, Destruction Junction, and Obliteration Boulevard. Now, I don't actually know if the original Monsterpocalypse had multiple boards or not. So I'm just going to say, hey, we have 2 boards. I don't know if the original one did or didn't. We have a bunch of, I think they did. Maybe they, I don't know enough about the original Monsterpocalypse. We have the monster stat cards, so we're going to see a lot of upgraded stuff. They're going to have play rates for the various powers and the various monster special attacks. We have upgraded art for the various building stat cards and monster stat cards. We have all the dice, the debris, the rulebook, all that stuff. The player aid and dice pool, that's going to be a revised player aid and dice pool from the original game. We have the various bonus health, the Megaton mashup co-op deck, the bases for your elite units. Elite units in general look like standard units, but they are elite and they have the same sculpt. Or at least I think they have the same sculpt, but they have better stats. And this is a quick way of tracking which ones are elite, because otherwise that would be confusing. Then we have this monster health tracker clip, which I'll be honest, I don't love that. This feels like Zombicide way back in the day. They moved and evolved well on from monster health tracker clips. I would love to see a stretch goal for like an actual monster tray. That would be amazing, because I feel that tracker clips just feels, I wouldn't use the tracker clip. I'd probably just use a token or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. You could probably take one of the extra elite bases if you have extra and just put it over and see right through that. honestly. But either way, I don't love that. We'll figure things out. I mean, when I say we'll figure things out, I mean if they don't give me a better option, I'll figure out a better option. I don't mean that I'm helping you on this problem. This is a you problem. Anyways, that is everything as far as what you get over there. Where are the Apex Predators? I want to get that Apex Predators. By the way, those little gameplay things do give you a good idea of how everything plays out. I don't see the Apex Predators. Do they not have a special section on Apex Predators? By the way, you can try the game on Tabletopia. So if you want to try the game out, it's available now on Tabletopia. You don't have to worry about, well, waiting for everything. Where are the Apex people? They don't seem to have a full break. I want to see bigger pictures of the Apex Predators. The Apex Predators are bigger versions of your existing monsters, although bigger, to be clear, does not mean a bigger base. It just means generally bigger. What does that mean? And also better abilities. So if you look over here, you can see a monster over here, and we can see the Apex Predator. Same base size, but at least this one is generally bigger. I don't know the sizes of all of them, so I'd have to compare. I mean, I don't know exactly, but they seem to be going for a more impressive overall scale. That is everything you get in terms of the 3 different pledge levels. And yes, if you get the $159 pledge level, you're saving like $10 or something, not a ton. That's overall all that stuff, which brings us to the various stretch goals, because I want to go through some of these, because we have a whole bunch of stretch goals, and the campaign page just shows them way too small. And the stretch goals so far seem to be adding to each faction. So we can see over here, this guy over here, we can scroll through the next one. We see some more units being unlocked. So basically you're going to be seeing monsters and units alternating, not perfectly alternating. We have this crane construction thingy, which will fix different stuff, fix different buildings when they fall to the ground. We have this guy over here, join the Cthulhu faction. We have another Cthulhu person, looks suspiciously like one of the other Cthulhu people. Again, keep in mind, to some extent, Mythic is limited on some of their sculpt options because they are trying to replicate the original Monsterpocalypse to keep things friendly to those who have that. We have this guy over here, Wrecking Ball, Armored Axe, another dinosaur defending Earth. Yay, go dinosaurs, I guess. Then we have the Spit It Out. More of these little small miniatures for the enemy factions. And then we're still going. We have this guy over here. Is this another Cthulhu guy? What is going on here? We have the Mighty Lord Cthulhu. Okay. Then we have, keep going. We're almost done. We're through a bunch of these things. Then we have one of the another giant robots adding to your Defender X and Nova. I think the name is Nova something. Another giant robot for the robot faction. I don't think it's called the robot faction, but whatever they are. Then we have, finally, more of these guys, more of these little belchers being unlocked, and I think that's everything as far as current stretch goals for the campaign. That is everything, which brings us to the should you back it, should you not, all of that stuff. Again, it's an existing game. There's gameplay content on it, there's review content. This is a light beer and pretzels game with strategy, but a light beer and pretzels smash up of the way I compare it is, I compare this game I compare this game to Marvel Dice Throne. It's a very similar experience to myself in the sense that both of them are offering me visual appeal, fun, accessible gameplay with strategy, but on the lighter side as far as the strategy. Although, to be fair, I've only played this game as a 1 versus 1, head-to-head, one monster, one set of supporting units, and I already know from others that this game shines when you have more stuff going on the table. The more monsters, the more buildings, the more abilities, the more stuff you have, the more decisions you are making around how those stuff interact, and the more the level of strategy will constantly escalate as you have all those things in play. Which brings us to should you back it, should you not for this game. Now, this is a Mythic Games Kickstarter, which generally means that whether I like the game or not, Darkest Dungeon is still a game that never really pulled me in, but this won't hold its value as much as Darkest Dungeon, but this will hold its value. I'm not worried about that at all, although with caveats. There's a few ways to look at this. The first way to look at it is the baseline. Do you need this game or not? This is a potentially 100, if you want the 3 to 4 player modes, and if you're getting the game, I really think you should be getting the 3 to 4 player modes with all the additional content with the Apex Predators. I think if you're getting the game, you probably should jump in at that 160 level. I think otherwise you're paying a decent amount, and you're paying shipping, you're paying VAT potentially, and for $120, I think that the extra amount is worth that, what you're getting. I think it's worth it. So if you are looking at this, I would encourage you to go that extra tier. Not a guarantee. Maybe you only play 2 players. Maybe all the other player modes and content does not matter to you. I hear you. Entirely possible. I think it would matter, and you get larger maps. I believe they have a different 3 and 4 player map for the game. I keep saying mats. You have 3 or 4 player maps as well. I believe with more buildings, all that stuff. There's a lot going on here. But yeah, so if you're looking at those pledge levels, the first question is, let's say you go for that pledge. $160 is a lot of money for a beer and pretzels game. And again, with strategy, but beer and pretzels, it's fun, it's lighthearted, it's not going to compare to, it takes 6 Siege from the games. That is a thinky strategic skirmish game. This is a skirmish game where you're moving units around the board and then you're rolling chunks full of dice to smash monsters through buildings across the board. Tremendously fun to watch, but a very different experience. So $160 is a lot of money to pay for that experience. You can get the full full Marvel Dice Throne and still have money left over if that's the genre and goal you're looking for. Although, again, if you're comparing it to Playmobil, this looks great. So as far as your personal choice, whether or not you get this, that is a decision you have to make for yourself. I am 100% biased towards this game because of the miniatures. If this game was the same exact thing with, well, I mean, if it had not miniatures in the same price point, that would probably be a problem. But the point is, yes, the visual appeal and plasticiness of all of this adds to the reasons why I want it. But you have to decide that for yourself. As far as whether it will hold its value or not, this will hold its value. Mythic games in general do a tremendous job holding their value. Whether I've liked them or not, they almost always sell for more than what they're worth, although with the caveat that their games do usually go on sale on their actual web store. So more expensive, but they do go on sale. And this is where I'm actually going to complain against Mythic games. So we have Monsterpocalypse, the board game. Over here, nope, wrong page. We have Steam Watches. Steam Watches, which is their last campaign, just starting to deliver, and they have a $170 price point for the all-in pledge. $170. And if you go to their Steam Watches over here, you go to their page over here, it's $190. So it's $20 more to get it directly from their web store, and that part I'm not complaining about. But this is the Kickstarter exclusive version of the game with all those tags that say, you know, KS exclusive over here. It's not actually Kickstarter exclusive, which I don't love that. You're supposed to have like Kickstarter Limited or things like that. You should have other terms in play. If you're going to say something is Kickstarter exclusive and you really mean Kickstarter Limited, I mean, even this building, even this single building, because of the fact that they've said Kickstarter exclusive in the past, when they mean it is Kickstarter Limited and therefore it's available not at retail, but Kickstarter and on their web store, even that building may well be available on the web store after the fact, but everything else is for sure coming to retail, or likely coming to retail, I should say. So factor in the fact that this will likely be available after on the web store, as well as general retail distribution, although very likely at a higher price point, which brings us, oh, by the way, before we move on to the higher price point, let's talk about the fact that even though, another reason the games hold their value, because both the fact that it's more expensive, and also because people don't always check their web store, and the web store is not always in stock, which is why if you go to the geek market for Steam Watches, you can see people who have sold their pledges for €190. That's €190 instead of $190, which you're like, why would they do that when they can just buy it online? Either they didn't know, or it's not available, or the pre-order tag. There's always other reasons why games will sell for more than they are officially available at. I have no problem believing whatsoever that everything you get Monsterpocalypse will hold its value just fine. The part that is an unknown is all these things that are being released as stretch goals, all these stuff that you're getting in your $120 or $160 pledge, all those stretch goals, those will be things that will likely be packaged and resold as individual retail packs. So it's going to add to the price. Then again, that core box at retail is likely not going to be $120. It will likely be cheaper than $120 for the core box. And I say likely, I don't know, because Mythic Games hasn't officially given numbers over here yet. They've just said it'll be available cheaper. But when companies say available cheaper, what they generally mean is that cheaper than the MSRP, which is not the actual fair comparison. So I never take cheaper to mean anything that I can use if I don't have an MSRP or official numbers. So yes, overall, I do believe you'll save money on this. I believe it'll hold its value. I believe if you get it after the fact, it will be available for more expensive, but it's certainly not a guarantee. If we look at current trends of how prices are rising, that $120 for the amount of stuff you get, let's scroll down again. Let's show you that. Where is it? Over here? The amount of stuff you get, nope. Let's go scroll back up. The amount of stuff you get for $120 is absolutely insane. You get all these miniatures. These are large miniatures. Those larger miniatures are always more expensive to produce. If you contrast this with games like Primal or Monster Hunter World and the amount of miniature content you're getting for the price point, even $120 seems like a very good price, all things considered. So yeah, there is that balance there. But that's everything. So it will hold its value, but also understand it will be available for later if you want to pay a little more. There's no major rush to get it on the Kickstarter. You can probably get everything after the fact from their web store, including that headquarters. Likely is the key word, not a guarantee. And then everything else is likely going to retail. Core box for sure. Other expansions likely. That's everything Monsterpocalypse. You can go ahead and check this one out. I'll have a link in the description down below. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.